Good morning, You Can Heal family. Welcome back to the Old Testament reading of 1 Samuel. Today we're on chapter 29. I'm outside and birds are singing and having a glorious time this morning. So let's get right into it. My name is Shena. If this is your first time, thanks for hanging out with us, and I hope you enjoy the reading today. David is kept from fighting Saul. The entire Philistine army now mobilized at Aphek, and the Israelites camped at the spring in Jezreel. As the Philistine rulers were leading out their troops in groups of 100 and 1,000, David and his men marched at the rear with King Achish. But the Philistine commanders demanded, "What are these Hebrews doing here?" And Achish told them, "This is David, the man who ran away from King Saul of Israel. He's been with me for years, and I've never found a single fault in him since he defected to me." So David's a defect. Verse 4. But the Philistine commanders were angry. "Send him back," they demanded. "He can't go into battle with us. What if he turns against us? Is there any better way for him to reconcile himself with his master than by turning on us in battle? Isn't this the same David about whom the women of Israel sing in their dances? Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000s. So Achish finally summoned David and his men. "I swear by the Lord," he told them, "you are some of the finest men I've ever met. I think you should go out with us, but the other Philistine rulers won't hear of it. Please don't upset them, but go back quietly." Yeah, I think that's interesting too, because David took down Goliath, Philistine. So, yeah, I'm not surprised they're not going for this. In verse 8 it says, "What have I done to deserve this treatment?" David demanded. "Why can't I fight the enemies of my lord the king?" But Achish insisted, "As far as I'm concerned, you're as perfect as an angel of God. But my commanders are afraid to have you with them in battle. Now get up early in the morning and leave with your men as soon as it gets light." So David headed back into the land of the Philistines, while the Philistine army went on to Jezreel. And that was a short chapter. That was chapter 29. So let's go on and read chapter 30, where it says, God answers David. 3 days later, when David and his men arrived home at their town of Ziklag, they found that the Amalekites had made a raid into Negev and had burned Ziklag to the ground. They had carried off the women and children and everyone else, but without killing anyone. When David and his men saw the ruins and realized what had happened to their families, they wept until they could weep no more. David's 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel, were among those captured. David was now in serious trouble because his men were very bitter about losing their wives and children, and they began to talk of stoning him. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Then he said to Abiathar the priest, "Bring me the ephod." So Abiathar brought it. Then David asked the Lord, "Should I chase them? Will I catch them?" And the Lord told him, "Yes, go after them, and you will surely recover everything that was taken from you." I love how David prays and asks God something, and the answer is like right away. Oh, I know some of us wish that would happen. Verse 9 says, "So David and his 600 men set out, and they soon came to Bezor brook. But 200 of the men were too exhausted to cross the brook. So David continued to cross the brook and pursue with his 400 remaining troops. Some of David's troops found an Egyptian man in a field and brought him to David. They gave him bread to eat and some water to drink, and they also gave him part of a fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, because he hadn't had anything to eat or drink for 3 days and nights. It wasn't long before his strength returned. Wow, David went that long without food. It's a good little fast. Verse 13, "To whom do you belong, and where do you come from?" David asked. "I am an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite," he replied. "My master left me behind 3 days ago because I was sick. We were on our way back from raiding the Kerethites in Negev, the territory of Judah, and the land of Gilead, and we had just burned Ziklag. Will you lead me to them?" David asked. The young man replied, "If you swear by God's name that you will not kill me,
or give me back to my master. Then I will guide you to them.
Sorry about that, You Can Heal family. I had to stop the video because my daycare kids got here. So now instead of hearing the sounds of the birds, you're going to hear the sound of children in the background. The last section of chapter 30 is David kills the enemy. So the Egyptian led them to the Amalekite encampment. When David and his men arrived, the Amalekites were spread out across the fields, eating and drinking and dancing with joy because of the vast amount of plunder they had taken from the Philistines and the land of Judah. David and his men rushed in among them and slaughtered them throughout that night and the entire next day until evening. None of the Amalekites escaped except 400 young men who fled on camels. David got back everything the Amalekites had taken, and he rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, small or great, son or daughter, nor anything else that had been taken. David brought everything back. His troops rounded up all the flocks and herds and drove them on ahead. These all belonged to David as his reward, they said. Okay, Hannah, do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Okay, Hannah's with me. She heard me reading the Bible and she came right on over. So let's see. I'll read this next section, then you can start right here, okay? All right. When they reached Bezor Brook and met the 200 men who had been too tired to go with them, David greeted them joyfully. But some troublemakers among David's men said, "They didn't go with us, so they can't have any of the plunder. Give them their wives and children and tell them to be gone." Ready? Say, but David said,
But David said,
"No, my brothers,
No, my brother,
don't be selfish
don't be selfish
with what the Lord
with what the Lord
has given us.
has given us.
He has kept us safe
He's kept us safe
and helped us
and helped us
defeat the enemy.
defeat the enemy.
Do you think anyone
Do you think anyone
will listen to you
will listen to you
when you talk like this?"
when talk like this?
Very good, Hannah. We share and share alike those who go to battle and those who guard the equipment. From then on, David made this a law for all Israel, and it is still followed. When he arrived at Ziklag, David sent part of the plunder to the leaders of Judah, who were his friends. Yeah, what number is that? Do you know? 30. 30, chapter 30. We're reading chapter 30. "Here is a present for you. Take from the Lord's enemies," he said. The gifts were sent to the leaders of the following towns where David and his men had been: Bethel, Ramoth Negev, Jatir, Orier, Zipmoth, Eshtemoa, Rakal, the towns of the Jeremielites, the towns of the Kenites, Hormah, Bor-Hasham, and Tach, Hebron, and all the other places they had visited. We did it. We did it. Do you want to say thank you for listening?
Thank you for listening.
All right. Always remember that true healing begins with self-love. Why? Because God is love, and He lives on the inside of you. We'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to finish up with a short chapter, chapter 31, and then we'll be moving into the introduction for 2 Samuel, chapter 2. Bye.
Bye.